On May 18, 1964, Brown University, founded in 1764 as the seventh college in the United States, and Tougaloo College, established in 1869 by the American Missionary Association of New York to train young African Americans as teachers and leaders, irrespective of religious tenets, officially entered into a relationship, now a unique and profound entity known as the Brown-Tougaloo Partnership.
We honor you with the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. Over the past 50 years, Brown and Tougaloo have discovered how much we enjoy learning from each other.
I think we have made America just a little bit more perfect union.
We laud your committed leadership as we celebrate our institution's partnership of 50 years, one that is peerless in America.
We, in fact, owe you, Tougaloo, a debt of gratitude, not only for your heroism in the darkest days of 1963 and 64, but also for helping us to live up to our ideals.
We shall not be moved. We shall not, we shall not be moved.
How do you say thank you to an institution which provided safe harbor for so many who were in the eye of the storm? Tougaloo College was there for us 50 plus years ago.
I think what was abundantly clear to academics in the North was the extent to which their academic colleagues in the South, especially those in historically black schools, were having to hold up the banner of the civil rights movement.
Tougaloo was the center of the movement. After this president said students can demonstrate.
That would make you a troublemaker. You were from Tougaloo. Because Tougaloo students were the ones who were in the forefront of the civil rights movement.
We saw their work in the movement as legitimate, educational, and needed. We wanted to keep them both scholar and agitator. These were extraordinarily unusual things we were working on.
I got a second education, and that was an education in social struggle for justice.
Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom.
Tougaloo's sacred history had a lot to do with ameliorating the wrong of American racism, and it continues to have a lot to do with that. And I think Brown's commitment to that concern and our continuing priority to bring a diversity of folks to study at Brown with the idea that that rich human experiment here will continue to be sacred. The merger comes oddly at the place where a guy down the street who is serving as the minister at Central Congregational Church, the Reverend Larry Durgan, is at a meeting of the American Missionary Alliance and worrying about the future of these historically black institutions because their finances and their enrollments were struggling. Almost concurrently, Brown's president, Barnaby Keeney, is summoned to Washington by the then Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, because it has come to his attention through a variety of means that, in fact, the racial climate of this country is deteriorating and the institutional support for the black community is inadequate, especially educationally. Presidents of prominent universities were gathered in D.C. This program was laid out for them, and they were sent home with a challenge: respond. Barnaby, hearing Larry's request and description of the financial future and stability of historically black schools, thought to himself, maybe there is a way.
Come on and talk, we're gonna talk about it, talk.
And we looked on it as being partners, equal partners, where we had a lot to offer Brown.
It's a partnership and exchange, and the exchange goes both ways.
This is a two-way street, and Brown students and this institution derive as much benefit or more than Tougaloo ever will.
The reciprocity was not necessarily in terms of resources, but certainly in terms of their own social and intellectual growth.
And this is a statement of us saying to the world, let us show you what it's like to walk side by side with each other, African American and white.
And helping folks to understand differences in people who look different from them, who may speak differently from the way they speak, who have different interests, but who are so enriched by sharing their differences.
The work that's going to change our world is going to come out of those situations where you have different people coming together.
Somebody in the registrar's office here at Brown said, hey, what about Tougaloo?
I woke up one morning and I said, I'm going to Brown.
So when they come back with a report of how they like Brown and what they did at Brown, that is piquing the other students' interest and making them want to get more involved in it.
What Tougaloo does in terms of its student body is to constantly throw that out there. You must ask the questions why, and then go figure out those answers, and then put those answers in play for the common good. And I think those exchanges are part of that as well.
What's significant about a historically black college can only be discovered if we're at that college.
We're talking about students who are still engaged in this exchange, still transforming them in a sense of how they view themselves and the world.
That sense of not having anything familiar around me was incredibly important.
How does that change and transform you for the work that you do moving forward?
It gave me an opportunity to then bring all that I know about myself and all that I know to be true into question.
I really encourage other Brown students to consider going to Tougaloo because that's where I'm going to get emotional.
I became one of the first recipients of the National Achievement Scholarships, so I could go anywhere in the world to college. However, I grew up looking over on the campus of Mississippi State University, except I couldn't go there. So we all agreed that I would come to Tougaloo, and it literally changed my life. I became the first African American to be promoted and tenured in the Department of English at Mississippi State in 2009.
Part of the allure was because it was different, and I wanted to experience something different and learn something different.
It was a really extraordinary experience. I think that's something that pretty much everyone who participates in the exchange ends up saying.
In my estimation, it was one of the best times of my life.
It's not only getting a degree, but it's training your mind to think in a different manner and to accept humanity as it is.
And it really opens up your mind and your way of thinking about life itself. Like, it gives you a different level of acceptance for other people who aren't from the same background as you.
The then mayor of New York, Jacob Javits, his daughter was my suite mate. And her father sent their private plane to pick her up for holidays. So I said, wow, I'm in tall cotton here.
I made friends that I can call like my lifetime friends.
So two of my dearest friends on the planet were women who I became friends with at Tougaloo.
It's striking when one goes from Brown to the Tougaloo campus, just the difference in the environment.
I was walking with the professor and students would walk by and say hello, and that wasn't normal.
I thought Brown was friendly, but it's actually every single time you pass someone they say hi.
At Tougaloo they really took friendly to the next level.
Students would come straight up to you and say, can I do anything for you?
People just greeted each other whether they knew you or not.
That begins a dialogue.
That's something that I want to bring to Brown and build here.
And it's that kind of experience that you come back to the campus energized and empowered to really extend yourself even more so.
This a little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
The study of the culture of Mississippi and the struggle for civil rights, the Black freedom struggle, it really prompted me to want to, as I said before, be a part of the movement.
The movement still, the struggle still continues.
The movement isn't over.
let it shine, let it shine, let it
You need to be thinking about what's the next thing. You need to be thinking about what am I going to accomplish and what am I going to bring back. And that's something that I think Tougaloo students are imbued with from the moment they set foot on this campus.
It's a great network.
Great family.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why it's important for programs like this to continue so that you can kind of keep passing down what you've learned to the people who come after you.
And gaining and sharing, gaining and sharing, gaining and sharing and giving, gaining and sharing and giving back.
I fully acknowledge what this university has done for me, and I just want to be able to give those students who are like me an opportunity.
Being so far away from home, knowing that you have a support system and knowing that they won't let you fail, that means more than words can express.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
It's not clear to me what this relationship will be going forward in its next 50 years.
It needs to go to the, next level in a sense.
This is an unfinished business for us.
I am convinced this is the pathway to the future.
I am pleased to present to you these candidates for associate membership into Sigma Psi Honor Society.
These are our 2014 inductees.
We've certainly seen ways that the instigational ideas that were at the heart of this partnership have turned into other ideas. I'm guessing that that will continue.
I found a little mechanism that would bypass all the other rules.
And I could potentially get into medical school without having to take the MCAT.
And it was called the Early Identification Program, which I invented.
So a standardized test does not determine if you're able to actually perform as a physician.
And it worked. It really worked.
We just started the Early Identification Program in public health. I predict that when it takes off, it will be just as great as the medical early ID.
What I hope for is that the partnership continues and continues to grow and continues to reflect the times.
Making sure that we are 21st century grounded. And I think we're doing that. With Black Lavender having come last year.
Take the piece of paper we're writing on with all the shoulds, crumple it up, throw it out, and start fresh if that's what's required to keep the essence and the vitality of a friendship which has animated both schools.
As I said, I sense that it's gotten stronger in the last few years, and I'm very happy to see that. So to me, it's lasted 50 years. So what will the next 50 years bring? You just never know. There's so much has been accomplished already.
As the partnership embarks on the second half of its first century, we carry on a dream and commitment to a better future. Together, Brown and Tougaloo will continue to provide a model for socially responsible engagement by students, faculty, and staff, and pursue the mission to develop and enhance programs that demonstrate to the world the value of embracing and harnessing the power of difference and diversity.